Hey everybody, I'm back with another video. I wanted to do another one about why I believe Christ returned in the first century. And I titled this video, Did Jesus Lie or Have We Just Misunderstood Him? Proof of the first century second coming and judgment of Christ. Now, this is not something that I came to in a day or two. This is something I've been studying for many years, and I want to take you and hold your hand through several of the passages that discuss Christ's soon return in the first century. And some questions you may have are: how can we know that Christ returned in the first century? What makes this view correct? And where do you get your information? Well, I'm going to tell you. Jesus spoke many times, telling people that he was literally talking to, that they would see him return in their lifetime before they died. It's not like this was a one-off statement, and we can just kind of, well, maybe we can interpret that some other way. No, Christ told people he talked to personally that they would not die before they see him return. And I don't think people understand how substantial that is, because either Christ lied and he didn't return before they died, or they died and would have to be raised from the dead again and see Christ come back, which is just totally illogical, especially giving the context of these scriptures. Um, Now, I want to start here with Jesus' own disciples. Christ told his disciples that they would see him return. He said in Matthew 16:28, "Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." What do you think this means, guys? He's only coming in one kingdom. That's the only kingdom he ever talks about in the New Testament. So either they were not going to taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom, or he lied to them. Okay? Mark 9:1. Some standing here. Again, they're standing in front of Christ, right? He's not talking about people 2,000 years in the future. He's talking about literal people in front of him. And how do we know it? Because he says, some standing here. That's kind of hard to put off in the future. Will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God come with power. So in the Matthew version, we have him coming into his kingdom, and then we have him coming with power in Mark 9:1. But we're not finished. Luke 9:27. There are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the kingdom of God. These statements are addressed directly to the people standing in front of Jesus, his disciples. Okay, he was not speaking to anybody else here, um, because we know exactly from these texts who Christ is talking to. Not only did he tell his disciples, but he told the high priest and the Sanhedrin. He said in Matthew 26:64, he was speaking to Caiaphas, the high priest. From now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds. Now, you hear this all the time. People's like, well, the whole earth hasn't seen Christ come in the clouds. Well, guys, clearly that's not what it's talking about, because he told Caiaphas that he would see him come on the clouds. And here we have another case where either Jesus lied, or Caiaphas would have to be raised from the dead in the end times to see this occur. The second is just illogical. This is one of the strongest verses implying that a first century person, Caiaphas, would see the coming of the Son of Man. Not only that, but We go to Matthew 23, where Christ talks about this generation. This is Jesus' exact statement. Matthew 23, 35 through 36. Upon you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zachariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Who murdered Zachariah? Okay, think about it. Truly I say to you, all these things shall come upon this generation. Okay, so not only do we know which generation this is because he ties it to the murder of Zachariah and who murdered Zachariah. Okay, so it's not like we have to guess at this, guys. That we are told in the text who is being spoken to. We know who this generation is. Okay, nobody in our day murdered Zachariah, but we know who did. These religious zealots in the first century and before. Okay, these Jewish people. This is a parable. This is parallel to Matthew 24:34. Both point to a first century judgment falling on the people he was speaking to. Okay? Now, we still in Matthew. I want to stick in Matthew 23 for a second. Matthew 23, it talks about the temple will be abandoned. Jesus says, behold, your house will be left you desolate. The house equals the temple, which was made desolate in 70 AD. Their house was the temple that was standing in the first century, guys, and everything associated with that temple. Okay, in Matthew 23:39, he says they'll see him again. He says, for I say unto you, you shall not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. This is spoken directly to the religious leaders of his day, the same group he said would face judgment. This is all talking about one topic, guys. In Matthew 23, Jesus pronounces woes on the scribes and Pharisees. He told them they were going to pay for the measure of their father's guilt. He calls them blind guides, hypocrites, serpents, brood of vipers. Said they will be responsible for killing the prophets. Says all this judgment will fall on their generation. Then declares the temple will be desolate, and that they, the ones listening, would see him again in a judgment coming. This leads directly into Matthew 24, where he describes the same coming and says this generation will not pass away before it happens. So right after Jesus left the temple, what did he do? He went to the Mount of Olives, where the disciples came to him privately and asked these questions in Matthew 24. And without skipping a beat, without making up a future generation, Jesus told them the same thing that he had told the Pharisees back in Matthew 23. He told them that all this stuff was going to happen. There was a judgment coming, and then it would happen in their generation. Okay, back to the generation living in the first century. Jesus repeatedly says this generation, the one he's speaking to, would see the fulfillment of his prophetic warnings. Matthew 24:34. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things happen. And what did Jesus say like 3 verses before this? He said, you will see me come in the clouds on my kingdom, right? And that's included in this generation and the things that would happen before they pass away. Okay, he didn't say this before told him he was coming back. He said this after. Again, Mark 13:30. This generation will not pass away until all these things take place. And again, Luke 21:32. Obviously the Olivet Discourse. This generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. In context, all these things include the coming of the Son of Man, the signs in the heavens, the surrounding of Jerusalem, and the destruction of the temple, which we know happened in 70 AD. All these things he said would happen in the generation he was talking to. He never once in any of these texts said that any of these events would happen to a future generation that was not standing in front of him 2,000 years in the future. He directed every single one of these passages to the people he was speaking to in the first century, and we have all the proof right here, guys. Okay? He even told the disciples during their mission, he said in Matthew 10:23, "You will not finish going through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes." God, Israel is about the size of New Jersey. Okay? How long do you think it would take to go through all the towns of New Jersey? Not that long. Okay? Not that long at all. And even on foot, it wouldn't take thousands of years for this to be accomplished. This is a fairly small task. And he told them they wouldn't finish going through all the towns before the Son of Man comes. What do y'all think this means, guys? I mean, this is Christ coming. He's telling you right here, the Son of Man comes. This is his second coming, guys. Okay? This is the only coming he talks about. He's not making up new stuff. Okay? He's not making up 5 different comings that he discusses in different books, or that Paul's discussing something different over here. That would be ridiculous. He's talking about the same thing. And he says to them, you will not finish going through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Talking directly to the disciples. Right here, I put it in here. Addressed directly to the 12 during their first century mission. Not only that, but the early Christians expected near-term fulfillment. Though not direct quotes from Jesus, the New Testament shows first century believers expected his coming soon. In Hebrews 10:37 it says, "In just a very little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay." He told this to them. Okay? He said he would not delay. 2,000 years is a delay. And we've already established he never told anybody in the future that was not mentioned in the text that he was coming back to them. It was always to the people mentioned in the text. James 5:8-9. The coming of the Lord is near. The judge is standing at the door. And I made a Facebook post about this a while back. And I showed how all these timing indicators point to Christ coming soon. He said he was coming soon, quickly. It's at hand. He's at the door. He would come in that generation. He said all these people would see him come back. And yeah, I mean, there's no reason to put that in our future. And I chopped off 1 Peter 4:7 here. I don't know exactly what it says, so I'm going to skip that for now. But here's a summary list. Here are the groups of people Jesus said would witness events tied to his return. And you gotta understand this, guys. There's only one second coming, only one judgment, and only one resurrection, guys. So when you see any of these events, they're all tied together. We believe Christ is coming back. There's a resurrection and a judgment, or people believe that in the future. I believe it happened in the past. But here's some key verses and groups. He told his disciples present at that time, and I'm not going to read these off, but you can see to the side here in Matthew 16, Mark 9, Luke 9. He told Caiaphas and the Jewish leaders they would see it in Matthew 26. the first century generation. He said generation in multiple, like 26 different spots. He said this generation would see these events. The 12 on their mission, like I said in Matthew 10, and the early church was expecting his near return. He said soon, quickly, at hand, at the door. You will see this. Get prepared now, guys. So there's no reason to put this in our future. You are taking away from them what Christ literally said to them, okay? And trying to place it in your life, which is the definition of arrogance. All right, I'm going to go to Revelation 1:7, which is the clearest passage that talks about uh, people who perish Christ. This is the direct statement that those who perish Christ would see him at his coming. In Revelation 1:7, behold, he is coming with the clouds. Does that sound familiar? And every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the land will wail because of him. Okay? And this is very important, guys. The Greek word for land can mean the land of Israel. It doesn't necessarily mean the whole world. So everybody in the land could have saw him coming, and he literally went around the land telling people that they were going to see him coming. So we have no reason to put this in our future. He talks about coming in the clouds here. He talks about every eye seeing him, just like in Matthew. And he adds this caveat, even those who pierced him, guys. That lets you know right there that it had to have been soon, which goes right along with everything Christ said about his second coming. Those who pierced him in the first century context refers to the Jewish leadership / people involved in his death, though Roman soldiers physically carried it out. So this is not talking about anybody in the future. There's only one point in history when people pierced Christ, and we read about it in the text. This mirrors the prophecy in Zechariah. And this is the prophecy that Revelation 1:7 builds on. Zechariah 12:10. They will look upon me who they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him. John applies this directly to Jesus, and the cross reference for this is John 19:37, where John says, they will look on him who they have pierced. John explicitly says Zechariah's prophecy refers to Christ's crucifixion. This ties Zechariah 12:10 to Jesus, which ties it to Revelation 1:7. And remember how I said, guys, nobody in the New Testament was making up new prophecy. All this stuff comes from the Old Testament. And right here we see in Revelation a quote from Zechariah, just like we see other quotations all throughout the New Testament. Jesus and Paul taught the law and the prophets. So they were only teaching what the Old Testament taught. And here's my overall summary. Jesus said he would return within the lifetime of his audience. It's very clear, guys. There is no future audience in the text. You might try to shoehorn one in there, but it doesn't work because Christ never said that. He never said he was coming to a future audience. He told them, standing in front of them, that they would not die before they see him come back. I mean, that's the surest statement this is primary school level stuff. I don't know how people cannot understand that. A biblical generation is generally regarded as 40 years, and this matches this AD 30 to 70 time frame, okay? And we see this generation all throughout Scripture, so that's how we get this roughly 40 years. And in this in the text, Jesus said some standing there would live to see his coming. He said his disciples would not finish going through all of Israel before he come. He told the high priest Caiaphas that he would see the Son of Man coming. Jesus said all the blood of the prophets would fall on that generation. This judgment leads directly into the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. Revelation says that those who pierced him would see him coming. This ties his coming to people who were alive at the time of the crucifixion. So, of course, if they pierced him, they were there when he got crucified, and they were there when he came back, because Christ said so. Jesus connected his return with the destruction of the temple, and the early Christians expected the coming soon. It's all over the text, soon, at hand. He never said he was coming delayed. It's going to be delayed or far away or way in the future. It was always directed to the first century people in the text. And how do we know who these people are? They're named in the text. These people are literally named in the text. So if you say it's if you say it's anybody that's not in the text, you're lying. And I don't care if you wear a suit, you're a nice guy, you wear a suit on Sunday morning, you've been doing it for 30 years, you're lying if you say that Christ was talking about anybody other than the people he was talking to. Because the reason being is Christ tells us, he literally tells us. I mean, it's hard to bend the words when he says some standing in front of him will not die before they see him come back. Okay, it's kind of hard to bend those. All right. Now I want you to think, guys, and I get stuff like this all the time. Instead of actually examining what I have to say, many people will just pick random verses out of the Bible, random passages, and throw them at me like I'm some kind of heretic or something. Like, I want to give you an example of what one guy told me. He quoted Matthew 7:22-24, where he said, "Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name cast out devils? And in thy name done wonderful works? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Therefore, whosoever heareth these things of mine and doeth them, I will liken him upon a wise man who built his house upon a rock." Okay, people quote, "Well, you're not right. This ain't what the church." This has nothing to do with what I'm bringing up here in the text. Okay, guys, this is just simply a verse misquoted out of context. And if you put this, it's crazy. If you actually put this verse in its correct context, it just adds to what I've already said here. In that day equals a covenant judgment on old covenant Israel, guys. And this happened in 70 AD. And Jerusalem was about to be judged. They were going to be judged on that day. There's only one that day being talked about, and it's all talked about all throughout the Testament. It's talking about the old covenant system collapse, false disciples being exposed. Okay, and we've seen this in the text. True followers were vindicated. And this ties directly to Jesus' theme in Matthew, the approaching judgment on his generation. Okay? And the false disciple equaled the first century Jewish leaders and miracle workers, these fake people who were not followers of Christ. So this has nothing to do with our future, guys. Just like everything else that I pointed out, this particular passage has a first century context. And so do all these other ludicrous passages that people quote based off of nothing. If you're going to quote anything, show me the passages where Christ said he's coming back 2,000 years in the future. Show me the passages where Christ says that he's delaying his coming, that he decided not to come in the first century. Show me the passages where this judgment is not brought up in the Old Testament and not told that it's a judgment on Jerusalem, okay? That it's a judgment of everybody in the whole world in the future. Come on, guys. Show these passages. Don't show these passages right here that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Show me passages like I've shown you The passages that show that Christ was going to return in the first century. Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. All right, I've shown you these passages. Now show me the passages where Christ says, I'm just joking. I decided to come 2,000 years in the future to this generation that I just forgot about bringing up in the text. I wasn't really talking to you guys. Show me those passages. Or maybe, just maybe, it's time for you to reconsider your position on this. Forget about what you've been taught and start searching these scriptures for yourself, because there's a lot of people out there that don't do it. They think just because a man in a suit is real nice to them and tells them a bunch of things on a Sunday morning, or a man in skinny jeans, that makes him correct or some kind of authority of the Bible, when that couldn't be further from the truth, guys. It is your responsibility as an individual Christian to look at these things for yourself. And I have, and clearly, Christ said that he was coming back in the first century to the people that he was talking to. And that's why Jesus did not lie. And that's why he came back in the first century and he judged just like he said he would. Thanks for watching, guys.